The person who's argumentative, if they only really ever mean to be argumentative, that's their goal, they will lose interest and not come. Be better if you could love them along to decide, I really don't want to be argumentative, I actually want to learn. But just don't give them a platform. And there are things, you probably have them too, you have strong opinions on these things. And you know, maybe on a certain day you'd be up for debating them. But that's not the point of the study. And then you go back to, what's the goal this week for the lesson? It's not to settle election and free will. Thank the Lord. You're not going to do it. You're just not going to do it. So just steer it, agree to disagree, acknowledge you won't solve it, get back on track. Train them up that that's just going to be how it'll be. Okay, problem areas. You get to something and someone asks a question. So let's say someone asks the question, do you think that they used organic fertilizer when the sheep grazed back in the time of David shepherding? Okay, who cares? I'm giving you an extreme on purpose. I'm giving you an extreme on purpose because that question doesn't deserve really any more time or any more anything. And you can just say, wow, don't know. Maybe you can find out. You know, I mean, don't be flippant. But that is what you're thinking. I mean, it's just not important to understanding God's Word or applying it or becoming more Christ-like or having transformed life. Okay, so there are some that are just, wow, I don't know. You can laugh and say, whoo, there's one for you, and just go on. But what if someone says, they might say, is this a psalm that Jesus talked about when he was referring back to this, when he was talking about that stuff in the temple? Maybe that wasn't in your lesson. I'm using an example it wasn't in your lesson. And so it's a good question. I mean, that's kind of be fun to know. But you don't know the answer. Do you have time to research it right then? No, you don't have time to research it. But it's a good question. So you can say, Maria, that is a great question. Wait, can you say I don't know? Yeah, you can say, I don't know. That's humble. That's transparent. That's genuine. That's all those good things. You say, Maria, I don't know. That's a good question. Do you want to take a look at that this week? If any of the others of you do too, do a little noodling. If you have time, if you don't, that's fine. I might look too, and then maybe we can find a time before class next week. We can share what we learned. Or we can talk, you know, if you call them on the phone, whatever you do. And so you can't solve it then. You can say you don't know. Don't make up an answer. That's arrogant. That's annoying. Don't make up an answer. You know, you've been where people have done that, right? Yes. It's no fun. It's no fun. So, but that's how you can do it. Admit you don't know. If it's worthwhile, say but let them. Don't say, oh, let me find out and I'll tell you next week. No. Have them get that digging and do that learning. Then if it's a sincere question, great. You've all learned more and you'll say, okay, does that make sense? Okay. Getting off track. I think we had that one up here. So you want to gently but firmly redirect the group and get back on track. So you have to be brave, you have to be gracious, you have to be firm, you have to be lovingly authoritative. And so let's give an example of this. So we're talking about, you know, the Psalms and the shepherd and David and the lamb and they're sweet and lamb. I cooked lamb for my family last week. It was fantastic. And do you know that mint jelly thing? I did the mint jelly. So if someone just starts going down there, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Right? What should you do? What are the women in your group thinking?
Do something.
Do something. They really all want you to do something. And so you need to do something. So what can you do? What can you do? That's it. Grab it, summarize it, and just say, I'm glad they enjoyed it. Let's enjoy the study. You know, just right over there, right? And just get them back on track. Now, it feels awkward-ish. It feels like, oh, I might hurt her feelings. But you just look around. Those other women in the group are looking at you like, They are. That's how they're feeling. And they're irritated if you don't do it. They're frustrated if you don't. And if, you know, so and that gentle person, you know, maybe didn't know that they were off track and they just needed the help too. So do that. You can, if someone is talking a real long answer, it may be on point, but they're just taking too much time. It's just too long. They might even become repetitive, and they're repeating. They're not good at speaking, and so they're having trouble concising their answer. So you can do a couple things. Gently, for starters, they may not even realize that they're just sort of lost. And so you can kind of just glance at your watch and glance at them. That's real subtle, like, oh, I'm thinking about the time. And so she may get that. She may be like, oh, she's looking at her watch. I better wrap this up. Really, it's a gentle way to do it. The time, yeah. Wow. Woo! That's where your timekeeper can be helpful. The stopwatch. I'm just trying to say there are things you might be able to do before you have to interrupt her. But it might not work, but you can try. Your timekeeper you might ask your timekeeper, and you might tell the women, okay, so now last week some of us and I could do it too, but some of us really got off the track. So I have asked Maria, she's our timekeeper, if some of you get a little bit wordy and a little bit lengthy, she's going to do just like a little thing here to help you wrap up. This means wrap up. You could try that. And maybe they will do that. If they just don't.
I like that. That's
okay. But could you do that in a sweet, humorous way?
Of course.
You could. You could do it in a sweet, humorous way. You could be like, something. Try it. It might, But you might have to interrupt. All those things you can try, but then you might have to interrupt. And you might have to say, Patty, I can tell it means a lot to you. Thank you. I just think what I hear you saying is that you and Larry are valuing your mission experience. Thank you. We got to move on. So, okay, Pam, can you share what you've got? And give a little summary, acknowledge it, and then move on. Okay? What about okay, let's do confusing. A confusing answer. And someone is answering something and you really have absolutely no idea what they mean, what they are saying. And so the first thing you do is talk to your face. Because I was told once I looked like a deer in the headlights. It was kind of sad. I felt like a deer in the headlights, and my friend said, and you look like one. So talk to your face and be, okay, don't faint. And then just give a brief something and move on. If it's just so confusing, there may be nothing you can say except, interesting, okay, and then go on to the other one. Now you're laughing, but I'm not saying that flippantly, right? Really, you could just say interesting, because, you don't want to, it really shouldn't be embellished, or you probably shouldn't, if it's really confusing and way off, it's probably going to be just too hard to put some sense about it. Sometimes you can. Sometimes if the person is getting a little bit tripped up, you can say, okay, now Kim, it sounds to me like you're saying you really do have a greater appreciation of grace versus works. Thank you. And and just help summarize it, thank you, and move on. Sometimes it can just be thank you and move on, okay?
Or just move on.
Or just move on. A smile and a nod, yeah, and just go ahead. Okay, what about if it's an answer that's wrong? It's wrong. And so someone says, my neighbor, I hear what you're saying, but my neighbor, she is the nicest person I have ever known. And there is no way that I believe that she's not going to heaven. When I read this passage, I really see that salvation is available to her. She doesn't believe in Jesus, but she is the nicest person ever. Then what are you going to do?
Just kidding.
This is the point of, I am not repeating that for the camera. This is the point tonight where you're all so warmed up and you're throwing everything out there. Okay. Or another idea might be, what might you say?
Refer them back to what the word says.
Okay.
You can graciously say, I wish that was true. What does God's word say about what salvation means?
Okay, so if I say that, you might say, Teresa, what verse did you use for that question? And then Teresa's going to give you John 3:16, Acts 4:12, and just go right there. And so you don't have to necessarily debate with that person that they were wrong, but you need to get the right answer out. And so that the whole group, who might be your next door neighbor, not the nice one, but somebody else who isn't in God's Word and does it, and you don't want her to leave confused and mixed up like, oh, that maybe that is true. That makes sense. They're nice. You know what I mean? So make sure you get clarity on it. Make sure you have, you could have different go-to people in your group that you know are strong that are going to give you the good answer. You could say to Jill, you know, you're the leader and Jill's in your group, and you can say, now I know we've got some new ones in there. I'm so glad about this. It seems like some of these points are confusing. Can you be tuned in? And when we get to one of those points, I'm going to come to you, and can you just really try to give us the solid answer that'll clear it up for the group, and kind of give her a heads up to know that you need her. You may not know who that person is in your group right away, or you come to decide it, or just call on Jill, and maybe you never told her in advance, but don't leave people mixed up about important doctrine. If you can tell by looks on their faces that there was a confusing answer, or something has gone awry that night and they're mixed up, make sure you say at the end, or let me back up a minute. You can say at the end of that question, I'm not sure we got the solid biblical answer on this, and then you go ahead and clarify it. You know, if there's those key points, you really need to do that. If you look over in, this is, you know, and clarify it. So try that. But if at the end of the time you see that they're still kind of quizzical and still kind of queasy and still feeling insecure, make sure to say, now if there are things that we didn't come to, you know, a full grasp, if you're still wondering, let me find a time to talk with you later. And if you can do that, clear it up with them so that they feel the freedom. They might not feel comfortable to ask it in the group. I feel kind of dumb. I don't want to ask my question in front of everybody. I'm new. But make sure they know the freedom that they can come to you and say, thank you for saying that. I really was mixed up, and clarify. Okay? All right. What else do we have? Long answers, we talked about that. Dominating group members, where they're overly talkative and aggressive and they talk too much. Why is this a problem? Tell me why it's a problem. Somebody who talks too much. Okay? You're not going to get through.
Your quiet people feel overrun.
Your quiet people feel overrun? Yeah. Yeah. She didn't let me say, you know what, I'm probably never going to talk.
Won't bother to come back.
I might not even do my lesson. What is the point? I never get to say anything anyway. Yeah, you know what? I don't even know if I'm going to go back there. And they probably won't ever tell you that's the reason. They'll say, I'm so busy. But really it's because they didn't have a time to talk. Other reasons?
That person the person that's overly talkative might really have some good things to say, but towards the end of the evening, it's like, I don't care what she's saying.
I never thought of that. So she might have some good things to say, but you just start, by the end of the night, you're tuning it out because it's just too much. That is a great observation. Absolutely. Everybody who studies should have equal time. We talked about you learn what you restate, and so everybody should have the growth opportunity. So you can try to head this off in the beginning and just say, I'm so excited about this Bible study. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. We've got all kinds of different personalities. Here's what I do know. I want us all to grow. One of the ways we're going to grow is if when we have our discussion time, everybody shares. And I know, if you're like me, you would like to share on every question. But we will have a 4-hour Bible study if we all try to talk on every question. So since we have 45 minutes together, I would love to ask those of you who just, you know yourselves, if you're prone to talk too much, can you maybe share once and then hold back? And some of you quieter ones, please know how much we will be blessed if we get to hear from each and every one of you before the day is out. And just acknowledge it right up front. So then people are thinking, okay, I shouldn't be the one that is always doing all the talking. Look forward to balanced participation and tell them that. For the quieter ones, to help balance it, give them the encouragement that your expectation is that they will share. So have everybody go through and say, why don't you circle the 4 questions that you enjoyed the most each week and be ready to talk on those when our group starts. And that way, Ms. Talkative will know I should talk 4 times, and then that can challenge your quieter ones to say, okay, I'm going to get my nerve up. I don't want to talk about this one. Ooh, no way. But this one, I can talk on that one, and have them all go ahead and mark the ones that they might want to talk about and say, if everybody talks on every question, we won't, have a fighting chance. We'll miss dinner, but, let's all participate. Use humor if helpful. Use humor if that works for you. Use eye contact. So if you're there and you're sitting, next to me and I just want to talk all the live long time, then you can just turn a little bit. And so this is me because it's not you because I don't want to say you would be a bad, but you would just look this way and look, okay, and you're waving your hand over there and just look over here and just say, how about someone on this side, and then maybe that'll subtly give her the idea that she can put her hand down. Sit on your hand. And you can say, we can't let Martha have all the fun. We can't let Martha do all the heavy lifting. Come on, guys, pitch in here. We got to have some other people talking. Okay? And make it be like you're being kind that they don't get to do all the talking. Okay. So all those things might work. And if they don't, and if it continues to be a problem, and you may have experienced that this is the way, then you can talk to the person separately outside the time of the class. And you can say, what's your first name here? Angela. Can you help me? I love your enthusiasm. I love you are prepared every week. You've got the questions done. I love that you love to share. It's a great help to me. Could you help me in another way? Have you noticed how Sandy in our group, she's got her stuff done, but she hardly ever says anything, and I would love her to have the experience that you have had from getting a time to share. So this week in our group, will you, maybe even don't share right away, or you can share in the beginning, but then after that, will you wait, and I'm going to see if we can get Sandy and Cheryl and Myrna to all chime in before you say anything. It'll be fun for us all to see how our group comes alive if we do it that way. And she might buy into that strategy of helping you draw other people out and being part of the team that helps draw them out.
That is really good, but I'm just going to say, hey, Angela, I want you to meet Laurie and
I don't know what to say. Okay.